Bonjour, salut, hi everybody. Welcome to your first French 9 video lesson. Now the world is in a bit of a weird place right now, but we are still going to forge ahead and not let that stop us from learning French. This video is all about notes for le passé composé. So please, right now, get ready to take any notes in any way that suits your situation best, whether that's writing out by hand or typing them out on a computer. You also have the benefit of pausing and rewinding this video, so please take advantage of that if you need to pause my explanations to jot down some of the info. But yeah, so before we left for spring break, I told you that the passé composé is the most important concept that you're going to learn this year in French 9, and that is still true. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to be with you in person to teach you it, but if you have any questions after this video about anything that I mentioned in the video, don't hesitate to email me and I will be more than happy to respond quickly to answer any questions, okay? So, without further ado, let's learn about le passé composé. All right, so here I have my title for my notes, Le Passé Composé, or the past tense, part 1. There is a second part to this concept, which we'll be covering later on, but I just want to focus on the very basics of the Passé Composé in this first part. So first off, what is the passé composé? As you can see here, the passé composé is a verb tense used to describe actions that have already taken place. Now, we've been dealing with writing sentences in the present tense, and we also learned earlier on this year how to write sentences in the future tense. With the futur proche, say we are going to do something. But in this lesson, we are going to learn how to write sentences in the past tense with the passé composé. So if you need a couple examples in English as to what I mean by the past tense, I have 3 very simple examples right here. I ate, you chose, and she sold. So by the end of this, you will know how to formulate sentences into the past tense to write very basic sentences like these in French. So how do I do it? Well, let me show you. The past tense in French requires 2 verbs. So you will always have 2 verbs when you're writing sentences in the past. And those 2 verbs that you need are an auxiliary verb and the past participle. Now, the auxiliary verb is avoir for this first section of notes. We'll get into learning about être as an auxiliary in our next section, but for right now, just think of the auxiliary verb as avoir conjugated with whatever subject you have. And then the past participle is the actual thing that you are doing or that was done in the past. Okay, so you know that I like to have formulas so that you can just plug in the information and that you know that it's structured correctly. So if it would be helpful for you to write this formula down, then go for it. Okay, so the formula for a basic sentence in the past tense in French, you have your subject. Now that's the je, tu, il, elle, on, whatever it might be, whoever you're talking about. Then you're going to have avoir conjugated with that subject. And then you'll have your past participle. And again, that's the verb, the action that happened in the past. So down here, I've got 3 examples. They're actually the same examples that I had in the English section just above. So I've got j'ai mangé. And as you can see here, I've got my 2 verbs underlined. I have my subject, je. Then I have avoir conjugated with je, so it becomes a. And then I have manger. That's the past participle, which means ate. Okay. Down here, I have tu as choisi, you chose is what that all means, but as you can see, I've got my avoir conjugated with tu. Choisir is changed to choisi for past participle form. And then here, the last one, elle a vendu, she sold. I've got avoir conjugated with elle, and then vendu, that's the past participle, that means sold. Okay, so basically speaking, you shouldn't have any difficulties with conjugating avoir. We've been practicing with that conjugation chart since grade 8. The past participle, that's what's brand new for this. Okay, so how do I form a past participle? That's what I'm going to show you next. Now, to make a past participle of a verb, it really just depends on the type of verb that you're dealing with. So what type of verb? ER, IR, or RE, okay? So if I have an ER verb, it'll change to E with an accent. So as you can see here, the verb manger is an ER verb, and it changed to manger with an E with an accent in its past participle form. Manger, spelt out like this, just means to eat, whereas this guy here, in its past participle form, that means ate. Okay, so any ER, regular ER verbs in their past participle form will change to E with an accent on the ending. If I'm dealing with an IR verb, that IR will just change to an I, such as choisir in my example over here. And then finally, if you're dealing with an RE verb, that RE at the end of the verb will change entirely to a U. So here I've got the verb vendre, which means to sell, and in its past participle form, to say sold, it changes to vendu with the U on the end. Okay, so again, conjugating avoir, we should be okay with that, but this is new. So please make sure that you copy this chart down. You need to know how to form past participles depending on the type of verb it actually is. So a little bit of a quick recap before I give you some exceptions, because we always know there's exceptions in French. Basically, to form the passé composé, you need two verbs. You need to have your auxiliary verb, which in this case is going to be avoir conjugated, and then you need to have your past participle. So a very basic example, we've got j'ai mangé. Once again, I have underlined here that I've got my auxiliary verb conjugated, that's avoir, and then my past participle as well. You always, always, always need to make sure that you have two verbs when you're dealing with the passé composé. And then down here, the past participle will be formed depending on the type of verb that it is. So if we're dealing with an ER verb, the ending will just change to E with an accent. If you're dealing with an IR verb, that'll just change to an I. And if you're dealing with an RE verb, that will just change to U. Okay, so if this makes sense to you right now, if you're feeling okay with this, then you're in good standing. So let me just, not confuse things, but let me just add a little bit more into the mix for you. Now, to change a sentence into the negative, we already know that we need to surround our verb with ne and pas. But when I'm changing a passé composé sentence into the negative, I surround the auxiliary verb with ne pas. Okay, so the whole thing isn't surrounded, the past participle isn't surrounded, it's the avoir part that's always going to be surrounded by ne pas. So my three basic examples here again, I've got je n'ai pas mangé, I did not eat. Tu n'as pas choisi, you did not choose. And elle n'a pas vendu, she did not sell. Okay. And just another little note here for you, hopefully you remember this, but the reason why I have the N apostrophe there as opposed to the NE is simply because my conjugation of avoir, it starts with a vowel, the letter A. So I'm going to get rid of that E just for pronunciation reasons and then sort of combine them together, okay? So we know how to put it into the negative. There's only one more thing that I want to show you that you should be aware of, and get ready to copy some of these guys down, okay? Now, as we know, in French, there are always exceptions to every single rule because that's just the way that French is. So, when forming past participles, there are some verbs that simply don't follow the typical pattern, okay? So, even though these are technically RE, IR, and ER verbs, when they're changed into past participles, they look completely different. Okay, so as you can see, I've got a huge list here of some of them that are apparent in French, but I've highlighted the ones that you should absolutely definitely copy down because these are ones that are used quite often. Okay, so if I'm dealing with the verb avoir, which means to have, so if I'm saying I had a cat when I was younger or something like that, instead of changing that IR to an I, avoir is going to change entirely to U, just EU. Same thing down here for boire. If I'm saying I drank a coffee at the cafe yesterday, it would change to bu as my past participle. For dire, which means to speak or to talk, it would change to dit. For être, which means to be, it would change to était. For faire, which means to make or to do, it would change to fait. Lire means to read, and that would change to lu. Pouvoir means to be able to or can, and that would change to pu. Prendre, which means to take, that would change to pris. Voir means to see, and that would change to vu. And vouloir, in its past participle form, vouloir means to want, that would change to voulu. Okay, so the ones that I've highlighted, like I said before, are really commonly used irregular past participles. But if you really want to make sure that you are up to snuff on your Passé Composé, at least, copy these guys down here, the ones that are highlighted, and you'll be good for going forward. All right, so now that we have gone through the notes for the Passé Composé, I thought it would be helpful to do some practice questions here together. So what I would recommend that you do right now is maybe pause the video and jot down these practice questions that I have here, these 5, on your piece of paper or maybe on the back of your notes, or if you are typing along on a computer, maybe just scroll down a little bit and have a section for practice, just so that you can really see how you actually formulate the Passé Composé and put all of these pieces that we learned in the notes together. So I have here these 5 questions, obviously. I have up at the top of the screen the formula for the Passé Composé. I have my avoir verb chart, and I also have a chart for my past participle endings. So we have everything we need on this screen to complete these 5 questions. Okay, so let's go through some of these guys together first. So for my verb chart for avoir, I need to know how to conjugate this because it's my auxiliary. It goes right in the middle of my Passé Composé formula. If my subject is je, avoir, as we know, will become a, spelled A-I. If my subject is tu, then avoir will change to a, spelled A-S. If my subject is il ou elle, so I'm talking about a girl or a guy, then avoir will change entirely to just the letter A, pronounced a in French. If my subject is nous, avoir will become avons. If my subject is vous, avoir will become avez. And then if my subject is il ou elle au pluriel, so talking about a group of guys or a group of girls, then avoir will change to on. Okay, so that's the first piece that you should have completed to practice these questions. The other piece that you should be familiar with, which we just went over in the notes, is the past participle endings. You have to know how to change danser, finir, entendre, and so on into their past participle forms. So if I'm talking about an ER verb, then the ending will change to an E with an accent aigu. If I'm talking about a regular IR verb, then that IR is just going to change to an I. And then if I'm talking about an RE verb, that RE will change to a U. Okay, so we have everything we need to practice these 5 questions. So what I would recommend that you do is pause the video right now after you've filled in your avoir verb chart, the past participle endings, and try these 5 questions on your own, okay? After that, keep playing the video and you can see how I properly, my cat just fell off the chair. Moving on, you'll be able to see how these questions are answered correctly, okay? So pause the video, try these 5 on your own, and then come back and watch the rest of the video to see if you got the answers correct, okay? All right, so here is the answer key, if you will, for these 5 practice questions. So let's look at number 1 first off. We've got the subject je and then the verb danser. So I want to write that I danced. So just by looking at this formula here, we're going to plug in all the correct sort of pieces to this puzzle to make a proper passé composé sentence. So first off, I'm going to rewrite my subject, which is je, so that doesn't change. The next bit that I need for my formula is the auxiliary, which is avoir conjugated. Now I know that my subject is je, so avoir, when conjugated with je, becomes a. So what am I going to do? I'm going to rewrite that as my auxiliary. So I have j'ai all together. The last thing I need is my past participle. So just by looking at danser, I can tell by looking at the end of it that it's a regular ER verb. So if I look down here, ER verbs, that will change to E with an accent. So it becomes j'ai dansé. And there you have it. J'ai dansé, I danced. Okay, easy as that. Just follow the formula. The next one, we've got vous and finir. Once again, we'll write our subject, vous, you. The next thing I need is my auxiliary. What is avoir and vous together? It's avez. So I've got vous avez. Now if I look at my verb finir, which means to finish or to complete, it's an IR verb, so I know it's going to be just an I. So it becomes vous avez fini, just like that. Next one, elle and entendre. Rewrite my subject. Oops. Okay, avoir becomes on. And then the last bit here, entendre, it's an RE verb, so that becomes entendu. Question 4, we've got tu and aimer, but I want to put it in the negative this time, okay? So we're getting a little bit more complex now. Same thing as before, I'm just going to rewrite out my subject, tu. Now the next bit here, I need my auxiliary. So how do I conjugate tu and avoir together? That becomes a. And then the last bit here, my past participle is aimer. That's just a regular ER verb. So it's going to become aimer. Okay, tu as aimé means you liked. But the key thing here is we want to put it into the negative. We want to say you did not like. So remember that when I'm changing a passé composé sentence into the past tense, or into the negative rather, I need to surround my auxiliary with the ne pas. So it becomes tu n'as pas aimé. You did not like. So again, that ne pas surrounds the avoir portion. It doesn't surround the subject, doesn't surround the past participle, it doesn't go around the entire thing. It's just around this avoir part. Okay, and then the last question here, we've got nous and avoir. Now, if you paid very close attention to your list of irregular past participles, you'll notice that the verb avoir itself in the past tense is irregular. Okay, so we're going to rewrite nous. My auxiliary is still going to be avoir, even though here the verb we're talking about is avoir itself. So to conjugate nous and avoir together, it's avant. And then avoir as a irregular past participle, if I just scroll up or look at my notes, I'll see, oh, hey, it's right here. It becomes eu, eu in its past participle form. So I'm going to go back down here and I'm going to type in nous avons eu. So even though avoir is technically an IR verb because it ends with IR, it's not going to follow this same rule, okay? It's irregular, so that avoir just changes entirely to eu. Unfortunately, you just kind of have to know your irregulars, so that's why I highlighted a couple of them in the notes just to let you focus on those guys first before trying to memorize absolutely all of them. Okay, so that is some practice with the Passé Composé. If you have any questions about anything that was mentioned in the notes, or you're just really still not getting it, then don't hesitate to send me an email or let me know, and I will try and help you through any questions that you may have. What I'm going to assign you next, after you copy down these notes, after you go through the practice, after you feel pretty confident with this, I'd like you to turn to page 9 of your learning guide package. That's our music learning guide that we just got right before we left off for spring break. Page 9, it says Learning Guide 11, Activity 3, and you have a list of 15 different questions that you need to put into the Passé Composé. So provided that you follow the exact same structure that you did for these questions, follow this formula, make sure you have your avoir chart, make sure you have your past participle endings chart. You shouldn't have much difficulty with that. Once you've finished page 9, I would like you to take a picture of it, and then you can submit it onto my blueprint. And I'll be marking the pages on there and letting you know how you did on those. I'll give you some feedback and we'll just go from there. Okay, so thanks everybody, and stay safe. Au revoir.